You were born into a war. Not a war of bullets or borders, but something quieter, something colder. A war that wages itself inside your mind, inside your habits, inside your urges. From the moment you opened your eyes, you were taught the shape of control, how to sit still, how to please, how to fit. But no one told you that the deepest weapon ever used against you was your own desire. You think you're free. But look again. Why do you scroll late into the night, staring into hollow pleasure? Why do you feel hollow after the release you once craved? Why is your ambition fleeting, your focus fractured, your soul silenced? Because somewhere along the line, someone, some system, some voice, convinced you to surrender the one thing that was truly yours. Your sexual energy. You see, this war isn't about sex. It's about the force beneath it, the pulsing, creative, primal energy that lives at the root of your being. Carl Jung called it libido, not lust, but the raw current of your potential. The thing that makes you hunger, dream, build, break, and rise again. And the systems of control? They learned long ago that to dominate the body, you must first capture the libido. So they told you your desires were shameful. They taught you to consume instead of create. They replaced real connection with synthetic stimulation. Because if you never learn to master your libido, they don't need to control you. You'll control yourself, just the way they designed you to. This isn't about conspiracy. It's not about blame. It's about truth, dangerous, liberating, uncomfortable truth. Michel Foucault once wrote that power is not merely repressive, but productive. They don't just limit you, they produce you. Your habits. Your shame. Your identity. You were shaped by systems that reward obedience and punish inner fire. And that fire? That's your sexual energy, your capacity to become more than just a body in line. But here's the secret buried under centuries of control. That energy is not your enemy. It's your gateway. Your libido isn't just about who you desire, it's about who you could become. If you dare to stop leaking it. If you dare to stop letting them harvest it. If you dare to transmute it into something the world can't define, confine, or cancel. This is the journey you're about to take. Not to repress your urges, but to refine them. Not to kill desire, but to reclaim it. To walk into the war zone of your own psyche, find where the chains are hidden, and break them, one by one. Because once you understand how deeply control is tied to sexual energy, you'll never look at the world, or yourself, the same way again. This is about power. Your power. And the battle to reclaim it starts now. You wake up. Not because you chose to, but because an alarm tells you it's time. You step into the same routine, brush the same teeth, wear the same face. And somewhere in the silence of morning you feel it, that faint sense of disconnection, of living a life that was scripted before you ever questioned the author. This is control. Not the violent, obvious kind. Not chains or whips. But architecture. Invisible walls, subtle rules, habits buried so deep they wear the mask of free will. Control doesn't need to scream to be heard. It whispers in structure. It hides in what's normal. It thrives not by forcing you, but by making you choose what it already wants. Michel Foucault taught that modern power doesn't operate through kings or executioners. It works through institutions, disciplines, rituals. It trains your body like a machine and molds your mind like clay. It's not about punishment anymore. It's about efficiency, about shaping you into something useful. Into a cog. Into a number. Into something productive and predictable. From your earliest memory, you were taught the laws of conformity. Speak only when asked. Obey without conflict. Desire what others desire. Repress what makes you different. Distrust your own body. And in this conditioning, something profound began to die. Your inner compass. Your wildness. Your truth. Now ask yourself, why is that necessary? Why must your energy be managed so tightly, your urges sedated, your instincts drowned? Because raw, unfiltered libido is dangerous. Carl Jung saw it clearly. Libido, sexual energy, isn't just about intercourse. It is life energy. The same force that fuels revolution, art, spiritual awakening, rebellion, and love. And when that energy isn't owned by you, it will be owned by someone else. Control needs your libido tamed. Because a fully awakened human being, one who's integrated desire, mastered instinct, channeled libido into purpose, is uncontrollable. You don't riot with chains. You riot with libido. But you were never taught how to handle it. You were only taught to fear it. If you're spiritual, you were told to suppress it. If you're secular, you were told to indulge it. But nowhere were you taught to transmute it. This ignorance is no accident. It's a design. Because an untamed libido distracts you. But a mastered one, it frees you. And they can't allow that. So instead, they offer you substitutes. Porn for real intimacy. Consumption for creation. Pleasure for meaning. Discipline for dopamine. And while your body chases small highs, your soul remains buried, forgotten in a cage you can't even see. This is the architecture of control. Not a prison of iron, but of illusion. Not a dictator outside you, but a tyrant inside your own head. And now, you start to understand. The more disconnected you are from your sexual energy, the easier you are to control. But here's the truth they can't bury forever. Control may run deep, but so does your instinct to wake up. And once you start to see the systems, not just outside, but within, you begin to dismantle them. Brick by brick. Belief by belief. Impulse by impulse. Until one day, the body you thought was yours. The thoughts you thought were yours. The identity you thought was yours. All unravel. And in that moment of undoing, something ancient stirs in you again. The desire to become real. There's a screen in your hand. It pulses with light, with sound, with temptation. 1,000 images flood your mind before you even know what you're looking for. You think you're choosing, but you're being fed. Fed what to want, what to crave, what to desire. And slowly, you're being taught to distract yourself from yourself. You've heard it before. We live in the age of distraction. But that's only half the truth. This isn't distraction by accident. This is distraction by design. You are not just being entertained. You are being sedated. And what's being silenced isn't just your focus, it's your libido. Because the truth is uncomfortable. When you sit in silence, when you disconnect from the noise, something begins to awaken inside you. That fire. That ache. That deep, raw power that wants to move you, remake you, reinvent you. That's libido. Not lust for someone else, but the urge to become. And the system knows, it can't let that live. So instead, it drowns you in dopamine. Scroll. Swipe. Stimulate. Release. Not just sexually, emotionally, visually, psychologically. You're kept in a state of near constant arousal, but with no direction. No purpose. No integration. Just endless cycles of micro-pleasure and macro-emptiness. This is how control operates now. It never forbids. It overwhelms. It doesn't need to chain you to a wall. It just needs to keep you distracted from the door. Because the moment you become aware of your own inner power, your sexual energy, your potential, your hunger for something real, you become dangerous. You stop obeying. You stop submitting. You stop performing. You start asking, who profits from my numbness? Who gains when I waste my energy chasing false highs? Who controls me when I can't control myself? Pornography is the most obvious example. Not because sex is wrong, but because it hijacks your deepest energy and redirects it into nowhere. You release your life force into a screen, into pixels, into fantasy. You feel a moment of pleasure, and then a wave of emptiness. And so you do it again, and again. Each time, a little more drained, a little more obedient. But the pattern goes deeper. It's not just sexual distraction. It's the entire culture of overstimulation. Constant news cycles. Fleeting trends. Instant gratification. Quick answers, no depth. Image over essence. Speed over silence. All of it engineered to keep you unconscious. And here's the tragedy. You begin to believe this is normal. That you're just unmotivated, lazy, broken. That your lack of drive is a personal flaw, not a systemic effect. But it's not your failure. It's the success of a system that feeds off your disconnection. Because when you're fragmented, you're manageable. You don't question. You don't dream. You just scroll. But when you stop, when you really stop, when you sit in the stillness and begin to feel your desires again, not the ones they gave you, but the ones that rise from within, that's when you begin to remember. You were never meant to be numb. You were meant to be alive. You were taught that desire is something to control, or something to indulge. But no one ever taught you how to listen to it. What if that hunger inside you, the restlessness, the craving, the ache, wasn't a flaw? What if it was a map? Carl Jung believed it was. He saw libido not as sexual lust alone, but as psychic energy. The raw current of your inner life, flowing through thought, dream, instinct, and creativity. It is the fuel of becoming. And this is where everything changes. Because once you see libido not as a temptation to suppress or a thrill to chase, but as your sacred power, everything around you, the distractions, the shame, the control, begins to reveal its true purpose. To keep you disconnected from that power. Because the moment you remember who you are beneath the noise, beneath the conditioning, beneath the screen, you begin to reclaim yourself. Jung's idea of individuation, the path to wholeness, requires you to face the shadow. To see the parts of yourself you've denied, hidden, rejected. And your libido? That's often the first thing you were taught to fear. You were told desire would make you sinful, selfish, dangerous. But Jung knew the truth. What you repress controls you. What you integrate sets you free. So if you repress your libido, it mutates. Into addiction. Into obsession. Into self-sabotage. Into compulsive obedience. But if you face it, if you sit with your own raw, unfiltered energy, you begin to see it for what it really is. Life longing for itself. And this is why control is so subtle. Because instead of locking you in a cage, they convince you to lock the cage inside yourself. You become the warden of your own soul. You censor your thoughts, shrink your desires, hide your fire. You trade aliveness for acceptability. And your libido, caged and unexpressed, becomes a ghost, haunting you through fantasies, shame, and artificial escape. But it doesn't have to stay that way. You can reclaim it. Not through repression. Not through indulgence. But through transmutation. When you feel sexual energy rise, don't numb it, and don't chase it. Hold it. Let it burn in you without being discharged. Feel the restlessness. Feel the ache. And then, direct it. Shape it. Create with it. Write. Move. Speak. Build. Let that same energy that once made you addicted now make you awake. This is Jung's gift. He showed us that libido is not the enemy of the spirit, it's the root of it. When you channel that energy upward, into purpose, art, truth, and love, you rise. You are no longer just surviving. You are no longer just performing. You are becoming. And when that happens, no system, no institution, no algorithm can define you. Because you're no longer reacting. You're creating. This is what they fear. Not your body. Not your mind. But your libido, aligned, awake, and unstoppable. And when you step into that power, you don't need to fight the system. You simply outgrow it. You think power wears a suit. That it lives in offices, sits on thrones, speaks through authority. But what if power lives in your pleasure? What if the systems that rule you aren't in parliaments or prisons, but in your desires? Your appetites? Your hungers? Michel Foucault saw it. He dismantled the myth that power always represses. He said something more dangerous. Modern power seduces. It doesn't punish you for disobedience. It teaches you to enjoy your own imprisonment. Look around you. Pleasure is everywhere. On demand. Custom-made. Mass-produced. Endless content. Infinite stimulation. Instant arousal. Never-ending novelty. It looks like freedom. It feels like freedom. But it's manufactured compliance. Because when you are overfed with pleasure, you stop seeking truth. Foucault understood that societies evolved from violent repression to subtle normalization. The old world had inquisitions. The new world has influencers. The old world had censorship. The new world has algorithms. And what do these new systems do? They don't stop you from speaking. They make you speak what sells. They don't forbid your desire. They train it. They don't kill your libido. They redirect it, away from inner transformation and toward endless consumption. And this redirection is the new face of control. Think about this. You crave a body, a fantasy, a hit of validation, a sense of power. But you don't pursue it through connection, or mastery, or self-knowing. You pursue it through simulation. The screen replaces the lover. The brand replaces the identity. The dopamine replaces the journey. And while you're busy chasing pixels, the real you, the one who could break the system, remains asleep. This is why your libido matters. Not because pleasure is evil, but because real pleasure is dangerous. It's untamed. It awakens consciousness. It stirs rebellion. It brings intimacy. It reveals the truth of what you really are. And that truth cannot be monetized. So they offer you a counterfeit. A curated, filtered, bite-sized version of pleasure that keeps you coming back but never fills you. You become obedient not through chains, but through seduction. Foucault called it biopower, the way systems now control you not by ruling your body, but by managing your life itself. Your habits, your pleasure, your productivity, your sexuality. It's no longer about what's legal. It's about what's normal. And what's normal is this: hustle but never rest. Consume but never reflect. Stimulate but never feel. Obey, smile, scroll, repeat. And in the middle of it all, your libido, the sacred fire that once could ignite revolutions, burns out in artificial pleasure. But there's a secret here. Foucault also believed that where there is power, there is always resistance. So if pleasure has been hijacked, then reclaiming it is an act of rebellion. When you feel desire, real, raw, unfiltered desire, and you don't rush to sedate it, but you sit with it, listen to it, grow from it, you become dangerous again. Not because you're violent, but because you are no longer programmable. You are choosing what to feel, what to love, what to build, what to live for. And in doing that, you destroy the systems that profit from your numbness. Not with protest, but with presence. You make your pleasure sacred again. You've felt it before. That fire in your gut. That ache behind your eyes. That pulse under your skin when something, or someone, stirs you awake. It's desire. It's hunger. It's raw, surging energy. And you've been told to release it. Or to repress it. But rarely, to transform it. Now you learn the third way. The alchemical way. The path of transmutation. You see, there is no difference between sexual energy and creative energy. They come from the same root. They rise from the same source. They seek one thing, expression. You feel it when you fall in love and suddenly want to write poetry. You feel it when you're alone and your mind floods with visions of greatness, beauty, transcendence. You feel it in those quiet moments of longing, when your soul whispers, "There's more. You are more." That's not fantasy. That's the libido asking for form. Not to be discharged into a screen, or a fantasy, or a stranger, but to be given purpose. Transmutation begins with a choice. Instead of letting your desire leak out into temporary pleasure, you choose to contain it. Not deny it. Not shame it. But hold it, like a sacred flame. You feel the restlessness, the urge, the ache. And you breathe. And you ask it, what do you want to become? Not what do I want to consume? Not who do I want to possess? But what do I want to create? This is the moment libido evolves. At first, it's hard. You'll want to release it. The body craves closure. But if you can hold it a little longer, it will begin to move upward. This is what ancient traditions knew, In Tantra, the sexual energy rises through the chakras, culminating in enlightenment. In Taoism, it is the Jing essence, refined into spiritual power. In Jungian psychology, it is the libido moving from instinct to imagination, to vision, to self. You begin to feel that energy in your voice, your hands, your art. You begin to radiate. Not just sexually, spiritually, creatively, existentially. You become magnetic, because you are integrated. This doesn't mean you become celibate or ascetic. It means you stop wasting your energy on what does not elevate you. You stop numbing yourself with shallow highs. You stop giving your fire to people who cannot carry it. You stop living in reaction, and begin living with intention. And in that shift, everything changes. Your work becomes deeper. Your relationships become clearer. Your sense of time expands. You become focused, not because of willpower, but because your energy is no longer leaking. You don't chase dopamine anymore. You build meaning. And yes, there will be days when you feel like exploding. When the desire feels too heavy, too wild, too much. Those are the thresholds. Cross them. Dance until the fire becomes joy. Write until the ache becomes vision. Meditate until the craving becomes silence. Build until your longing becomes legacy. Because what you're holding isn't just sexual tension. It's the potential of a future self trying to be born. Your libido is your becoming an embryo. You were never meant to be empty. You were never meant to be numb. You were meant to feel fully, and then create consciously. That's what the system fears. Not your sex drive, but your ability to channel it into freedom. You see now, the real revolution doesn't begin in the streets. It begins in your nervous system. When you take back your energy, from the screen, from the noise, from the fantasy, and redirect it toward your becoming, you become sovereign. So feel the fire. Honor it. Don't run from it. And don't waste it. Let it forge you. Let it lift you. Let it remake you into someone they cannot ignore, cannot control, cannot reduce. Someone fully alive. There comes a moment when the fire no longer scares you. When the ache no longer weakens you. When the chaos inside you begins to sing instead of scream. That moment is not a reward. It's a return. To your center. To your soul. To the place inside you that was never broken, only buried. You have transmuted. You have alchemized. And now, you begin to reign. Not over others, but over yourself. This is inner sovereignty. You are no longer pulled by shallow cravings. You are no longer ruled by unconscious habits. You do not chase pleasure. You wield it. You do not fear desire. You channel it. You no longer confuse stimulation with satisfaction, validation with love, performance with presence. You are rooted. And in a world built to distract, a rooted human is a revolution. Think of all the systems around you. Politics that need your fear. Economies that feed on your emptiness. Algorithms that seduce your attention. Institutions that want your obedience. Now realize, all of them fall apart when you become whole. Because they were never built to serve the sovereign. They were built to manage the dependent. And dependency is born from inner fragmentation. Split your soul, and they can sell it back to you in parts. Through status. Through fantasy. Through approval. Through control. But when you come back to yourself, when every part of you is welcomed, seen, integrated, they have nothing to sell you. Because you are full. This is why your sexual energy is sacred. Because when you own it, master it, and elevate it, you become immune to manipulation. You no longer need others to complete you. You no longer fear being alone. You no longer shrink your light to fit into small systems. You become a cathedral. Your body, a temple. Your mind, a kingdom. Your spirit, an altar. And at that altar you bow to nothing, except the truth. Jung called this process individuation. Foucault hinted at it when he said that freedom is not given, but practiced. It's not just about resisting external control. It's about dissolving the internal mechanisms of control, the inner critic, the shame, the conditioning, the fear. You become sovereign when your choices come from presence, not programming. From soul, not survival. From power, not pain. You are not what happened to you. You are not your urges. You are not your past. You are not your numbers, your followers, your bank account. You are the witness of all of it. And the moment you remember that, you stop living like a pawn. You start living like a presence. One that cannot be manipulated. One that cannot be bought. One that no longer begs to be seen. Because it sees itself. This is the final shift. You are no longer chasing. You are choosing. You don't need permission. You don't need rescue. You don't need control. Because you've become responsible for your energy. And that's the one thing no one can take from you. Your ability to direct your life force towards something divine. Whether it's a vision, a craft, a mission, a love, you now carry the sacred fire with intention. You no longer fear the fire. Because you have become it. You are not the product of this system. You are the one who outgrew it. Not through rebellion, but through remembrance. The system taught you to fear your desire. You turned it into creation. The world tried to numb your soul. You turned silence into strength. They tried to control your libido. You turned it into light. And now, you are untouchable. So here you are, at the end of a journey that was never really about knowledge, but about remembering. You've walked through the dark corridors of control, you've stared into the abyss of desire. And you've felt the slow, burning truth that everything you were taught to fear was actually the key to your freedom. They told you to numb it. You let it burn. They told you to silence it. You let it speak. They told you to release it. You turned it into power. And now, you are something they cannot categorize. Not a consumer. Not a slave. Not a brand. Not a follower. You are a sovereign flame. You've seen how the world feeds on unawakened energy. How the screens, the systems, the seductions, all exist to keep you chasing ghosts of fulfillment. But you're done chasing. Because you know now, the thing you were seeking out there was always inside you. It wasn't pleasure. It wasn't power. It wasn't validation. It was presence. Wholeness. Sovereignty. The unshakable awareness of who you are, even when the world forgets. They told you your energy was a sin. You turned it into art. They told you your desire was dangerous. You turned it into vision. They told you to fit in. You chose to become indivisible. And from this place, this center, this altar, this throne, you don't need revenge. You don't need applause. You don't need proof. Because you are whole. And wholeness is the one thing this world cannot sell. So let them market their distractions. Let them dress up control as comfort. Let them trade truth for trend. You've seen the game. You've learned the code. You've taken back your fire. And now, you walk differently. You speak differently. You love differently. You build differently. Because you are no longer afraid of your energy. You are the energy. The kind that creates. The kind that liberates. The kind that remembers. So when they ask, who are you to stand apart? Who are you to say no? Who are you to shine without permission? You smile. Not with arrogance, but with the quiet knowing of someone who has seen themselves. And you answer, I am the fire you couldn't kill.